morning, cellists. Here we are in the second lesson looking at the swan and how to remain beautiful and peaceful on the surface whilst working quite hard underneath. Today, for your technicals, I've got a few things in the pot. First, let's think about what we looked at yesterday. We looked at various ways to solve G major that might just take you on a slightly different viewpoint. And one of those was universal fingering, where we began on a stopped note with a stretch position, stretch, close, 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 and then continue up the top. And I just really would like to encourage you to feel the familiarity of that and how transportable it is. So if we remind ourselves again of the G major stopped. Now, go back a semitone to F sharp and play the same pattern. Really portable, and how easy is that? You know, F sharp major, you've got rather a lot of sharps in there. Your maximum of 6, that's sort of, well, maximum standard you'll encounter, of 6 sharps. And it does relate to a portion of the swan. Now, although the scale that we'll be looking at in bar 8 is really B melodic minor, nevertheless it has a lot of characteristics of F sharp major in there. It's just the D natural is present. And because it begins on an F sharp, and we'll be looking at the relationship between that and moving to the top D, it's, I think, useful for you to play F sharp major in that preparation. By all means, play B minor melodic as well, but I think actually this is going to be more useful than you might first think. Now, related to that scale, I'd like you to also explore the wholetone scale that begins on F sharp. And as you may recall, it has a similar sort of feeling in terms of the crab crawl nature of the hand coming back like this. Only 6 notes, remember, so it's the 3 notes beginning on the F sharp are like F sharp major. Go back a displaced semitone to a C natural as if you're playing the beginning of a C major scale. Back a displaced semitone again, and again. Keep going, keep going. Little finger at the top, F sharp. Now this is going to be, again, more directly relevant than you might think. It's not just about stretching your visions on the cello and your knowledge and sort of sound shapes, but it is also absolutely directly linked to the shift that we'll be encountering going from bars 8 to 9. Which do have the notes from that wholetone scale in them, and there's a bit of thinking mechanism that's going to be relevant there. You might just notice that the feeling as you go across the first 2 octaves here feel not dissimilar to the F sharp major, that this time the F sharp major we will go back a displaced tone, displaced semitone, displaced tone, whereas the wholetone scale is displaced semitones every time, and obviously you have fewer notes. So there's some thinking to be explored in scales today. The other thing I think would be useful is actually a D7 arpeggio. This is the dominant 7th in the key of G. Because remember, if you're trying to find out which key it belongs to, which you did this, nice and easy. So if it begins on a D, its tonic or keynote will be G. So taking the D7 chord, or arpeggio, that would be just a 2-octave version. I'm reminding you, we've got D, F sharp A, and C natural. Now what I propose is, I mean that's a 2-octave fingering, and obviously 3-octave fingers we normally just go up and across the instrument. But to be useful to us for what we're encountering here between bars 11 and 12 in the swan, I think it would be really useful to explore going up the A string and a bit of an unusual top. So we begin as normal. Now here in instead of 4, put a 1, stretch, go to 1. Now, although, I mean, you would think a standard fingering here would be stretch 2 and 3, but don't do that today. Instead, 1, 3, 4. Now, as you might have noticed in the whole tone scale, we also used the little finger for the F sharp at the top. This is also standardly used in the very high chromatics. If you begin on an F sharp, let's think a G, a B flat, or an E, that you would equally also be finding your 4th finger on a top note. So we do use the 4th finger in the high positions on occasion, and this is one of those occasions. So the reason for that fingering is actually to help you in bars 11 to 9, because then you'll have actually explored putting your fingers on exactly those notes, and it should help you with the physical feeling of shifting to that C natural, which is a notoriously awkward shift to learn. The other thing you could explore at this point is that's the way we'd be preparing for going up in the piece. But of course it comes down with an F natural. So you might like to try in this octave going up and down F sharps or F naturals. So the F sharp we've explored, F natural, or cut out the D at the top. And then the F sharp. Really both rather beautiful. You could go up F sharp, down F natural. And then you've got everything in place and ready to help you feel very super confident in this little fragment of the swan, which can sometimes feel less confident than it needs to be. Great, so there's our technicals. Just check my spikes nice and secure. And now we're moving on to the Feuillard study. We're looking at number 13, and today we are looking at, which bars are they? Bars 9 to 17, I do believe. So we've just arrived on an open A from a B flat. At this point we'll be shifting between strings from 4th to 1st with the same note. So we've got to sort of seem like this is very easy and elegant, but we're matching pitch, being quite swift with the shift, but smooth. Obviously the ones where there's an open string between, yippee, that's a lovely easy mechanism for getting around to different parts of the instrument. There'll be many places you can employ that. So that's an easy spot. We've arrived into the F. Simple but fairly pleasant. We've been playing an F major for a little while here, and really it's the same idea as we've looked on the A string, it's just we're doing the shifts up and down the D string. So this portion today is looking at transition between the A and D string and pitch matching with swift shifts, and it's also looking at swift shifts up the same string, and we've finally also moved across to the G string at the very end there. And don't forget that point will be where you need to just rotate your left arm a little bit more so you've got good weight over the fingertips. That's all there is in this fragment. Nice and easy. It's good to have some easy things to complement our other works that we're looking at. And I gave you plenty of technicals, I think. Now let's move to the Swan, the next fragment. This is going to be from bar 6 through to 13. So it begins the same as the beginning, this phrase, but instead of the A that we had in bar 3, we should be moving to A sharp. And watch out, a bit like in our Feuillard studies, you have to watch out. The shape is still a minor third, but there'll be a second finger from A sharp to B, whereas from A to B natural was a tone. So we're just changing where the tone and semitone sit within the hand. And the other element that just to be aware of, I'm sure that you are very comfortable with this, but I'll just point it out, that of course that A sharp is like the 4th position with a semitone nudge just to the floor. It's officially taken as to lower 5th position, but often we don't think in those terms. So if you think of the kind of concrete known fourth position plus the semitone, I think that will stand you in good stead. So without further ado, we apply the same mechanism as we did in the beginning phrase, which is a fairly fluent bow for the first crotchet, and of course our natty finger crossing exercise for smoothness. Here we go. Nice and easy, having worked out that little plug-in. Now the following note, we want to go back onto the D string for it, and there are a few options. Now in terms of getting your tuning, if you think you might find this difficult, there's a reason why I'm just staying on that C sharp. Your ear could be trained by checking across the string. So I've just moved my little finger from the C sharp to the F sharp. They're a fifth apart, we're tuned in fifths, there it is for the taking. I'm not going to play it here in the piece, but if you find difficulty locating a good F sharp and the tuning isn't so comfortable or sure, this is a good way to train your ear that you know what to expect when you go back. Now you'll notice I've chosen to go back onto a second finger on an F sharp. I know standardly we might be thinking 3 to go into first position, or you might even be thinking, oh well, 1, it's nearer. I'm not going to choose 1, very particularly because the following 3 notes I want to begin on the 1, and I don't really want to have an inarticulate shift at that moment. I want really good contact, and I'm going to go for an inarticulate shift. I'm choosing 2 because it's a little nearer than going back to 3, and gives me the articulated shift that I'm after. If you find that that's less reliable, by all means go back to 3 and then continue onto the first finger on the G sharp. Either is absolutely fine. Just a little further to go if you go back to the 3, but it might feel more certain because obviously you're going back to first position. It's great. So we've arrived at the F sharp. Now at this point I'm going to slur 3 quavers per bow, and I'm going to make my fingering match that bow pattern. So I have a beginning on a 1. Now you stretch back a displaced tone just like we do in scales, and keep going up. Now at this point, these 3 notes, the F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, they fall precisely in line with your whole tone scale. And the shift we're about to encounter can be made mechanically very secure. It can feel a bit like, oh, where is that D in relation to an A sharp? Let's think about it in another way. So my third finger is on the A sharp, and my first is on the F sharp, and we're a major third apart because I've got 2 whole tones there. And if I imagine this A sharp was a B flat to D is also a major third. I'm leading you somewhere here. You can start to see perhaps why I put the whole tone scale in, but more than that, by keeping your hand exactly where it is on those notes and just sliding so the first finger slides to where the third was, your third finger will be on the D. Absolutely, every time. Which gives you a great sense of certainty as you rise up to that top note. It's very important you do keep the shape though. Quite commonly this first finger might collapse in as you stretch out and become relaxed about it, in which case the mechanism won't work, that particular mechanism. So keep it stretched and it will be correct for the top note. So from the bottom F sharp, now once we're up there, if you've maintained that lovely major third shape, which made sure that you could find the D, your first finger will still be on the A sharp, or B flat if you're thinking of it like that in terms of the 3 tones there. So be sure to move your first finger in by a semitone, otherwise the note that's coming in bar 10, the second note, will be too flat. Now I've moved it in, it's perfectly in the right place. Back to fourth. this point, don't jump. Get that first finger stretching back to the D. Now one way to kind of remind yourself about keeping the rest of the hand in a good shape is first finger you can point up to the ceiling, you point towards your face, you put this back on the string. There it is. Slightly distracted there, but you get the idea. We can stretch back for it. Stretch. Again, it's little patterns of 3, a closed hand shape, stretch back to a stretched hand shape there. So that gives us that really lovely little G major falling arpeggio. Stretch back. Now at this point, we're exactly in line with the dominant 7th solution that I showed you earlier. And if you've been practicing it, when you come to find that C natural, it'll be much easier. Similarly, if you've been practicing the D minor with a minor 7th little arpeggio, that will also help you with the falling arpeggio at bar 12, which is actually just F major. You can always play it that octave lower just to remind your ear of how it will sound to fall. The first 3 notes of each of those bars falling can help you feel a reliance about what to expect in bar 12. Now the reason why this becomes a difficulty is because you're moving from an F sharp, and of course the distance between F sharp and C natural is a diminished 5th. And you know, your ear is commonly not very well prepared for it, so you may very likely undershoot and arrive at a B, or overshoot and get to a C sharp. Anyway, these mechanisms will absolutely help you. Once we've come back, at this point again another stretch to the C natural, C major, a little bit of C major scale there. One other thing you might have just noticed, I just tapped my C before playing the top C. That is of course another tool available to you. So if you had difficulty after the first phrase, you can pluck the C and then there you are. That's another little helping hand to guiding your ear and your fingers to the right location. And obviously you can let go of those little guides, but as you become more familiar and more comfortable with it. And yeah, it should really sort of give you an assurance. You'll know then physically what the distance is, and your inner ear will know what to expect. And if your inner ear knows what to expect, you'll be surprised how very, very accurate you can be if your inner ear is correct. You could sing it. That's another way to kind of find your way there. So all together, have we finished those? I think we've pretty much finished. I mean, obviously they would be shaping, but I think they kind of rise and fall quite naturally. So let's take it from bar 6 then. I thought I was playing the opening. I do beg your pardon. I was thinking, why am I going there? Okay, let's have another go at that. About dynamics there is, I think it feels nice and optimistic when we've got up to the top D, but maybe it's a little bit sort of less sure of itself when we come to the F major descending arpeggio there. And if that's ready for something a little bit more mysterious and emotional, I think just coming up, you know, a little bit of the next phrase, which we'll look at tomorrow. Enjoy your explorations. Bye.